Hey everyone, Mo here, and before the video begins, I just want to let you guys know that my schedule has opened up for me to do coaching again. So if you're interested in private one-on-one coaching for me to help you, whether you're a newer player and you want to excel at the game very quickly and learn the fundamentals without developing any bad habits early, or if you're an experienced player who's already maybe platinum or diamond in your top 1%, but you need some help filling in the gap to get you to that 0.01%, to make you just some of the best, then hit me up on Discord and I can get you in some private one-on-one coaching lessons to help you polish up any skills you want to refine and help you learn all of the secrets to becoming a top player. That's it. I hope you enjoy the video. Hey everybody, Mo here, and today I'm bringing you guys another episode of Meta Monday. So, for everyone that doesn't know, last week was the last, official week of the season. So laddering doesn't really count for anything anymore over the next couple of weeks. So you have this week, and then you also have next week, I believe, where ladder, the new season starts on a week from Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. That's when we get all of the new cards, we get the new set, ladder will reset, and all that fun time. So basically, over the next week and a half, it's very much just kind of a play for fun on ladder, unless you are trying to get to whatever rank you're going for. And that's why I'm still making these Meta Mondays. Previously, I just wouldn't make Meta Mondays on the off-season week or week and a half, because it was kind of like I had this mentality of, oh, well, if you're not grinding for seasonal points or you're not grinding for whatever, then there's no reason to play. And then, I realized that there's a lot more people out there than the people just grinding for seasonal points. And it's not really fair to you guys that I don't put out a video and don't make a Meta Monday just because you aren't masters or because of you're not trying to qualify for like seasonals and stuff like that, right? So it's not fair to you guys. So I decided I'm gonna go ahead and make one anyways, just to still give you guys an idea of what's good on ladder, what you can use to grind out for that last week, those spots, your final ranking that you're looking for. If you're trying to hit, platinum, diamond, masters, or whatever it is your goal is for the end of the season. My goal is to help you hit your goal. So before we get into the Meta Monday, I wanted to remind you guys that 70% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to me. So if you guys could do me a huge favor and click the subscribe button, that helped me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm, as well as leave a comment down below on what decks you want to see me play this week. I make a lot of decisions on what decks I end up making and what videos I end up making based on your feedback. As we saw in the last video, there is I put out a Kindred gameplay, and it seemed to do pretty good because a lot of people were asking for Kindred. So if you guys go down in the comments below and let me know what deck or what champions you guys want to see played, I'll make a video on it, because I just want to give the people what it is they want, and the people that are the most interactive with me in the comment section and the loudest and stuff like that, it makes it really easy for me to understand what it is you guys want, and I'm more likely to put out content that you like. So that's it for the intro. Let's get into the actual Meta Monday. So it starts to look like not much has changed. We're going to go over the top 8 decks here. And the most played deck again for this week is, in fact, Sin of Vygar. Let me pull that deck list up here. Oh yeah, a lot of people were telling me that you guys liked it putting the deck list up on the screen. So that's cool. That was something else, that was something new that I tried. And it's good to see that you guys like it. So thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. Now I'll continue to put the deck list up on the screen. So Darkness, for those of you wondering, this is 1 Minimorph, 2 Vengeance, 1 Ruination. So Darkness has been a pretty good staple. It's probably the best control deck in the game at the moment, because you play so much cheap removal. It's one of the only control decks that actually beat Ionia because of how cheap the removal is and how much removal you have. It's not like, oh, I'm going to spend my entire turn avalanching you, and then if you, counter it, or if you attack me anyways, I'm dead. It's like, I'm going to play unit, and then darkness you. Oh, you countered my darkness? Okay, next turn, I'm going to play unit, and I'm going to darkness you. Or if they have a Senna in play, Senna is extremely hard to deal with if you are something like an Ahri Kennen. Because you can't bounce the Senna, because if you do, they're just going to replay it and get a free darkness. You can't really block the Senna to kill it, because they have these darknesses that are probably dealing, 3 or 4 damage and make it extremely hard to block and kill the Senna. There's really not much you can do. I also noticed this list plays Go Hard. Don't play Go Hard. Don't do that. Let me find. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. We'll look at this. Can we do this? Does it? I don't know how this works. Can we? Whatever. Maybe we can pull up a Darkless here, and I'll just continue to stall. So yeah, don't play Go Hard. Play something like this. And this is just 3 Mini-Morph, 1 Ruination, no Vengeances. But yeah, Darkness is still really good at removing small units. It's good at doing it efficiently because of how many ways it has to create Darknesses and to create these removal spells. That's why it has such a good time against Lee Sin. Outside of the fact that you get to play, you know, 2 or 3 Mini-Morphs, you also just get so many Darknesses that Lee Sin just cannot keep their Lee Sin alive through it. If your opponent's not a good Lee Sin player and they play Lee Sin early, you go, okay, Darkness you for 5. They say, okay, I have like, you know, Nopify, Save Spell, whatever. You go, okay. Sometimes in that same turn, but probably the next turn, you go, Darkness you for 5. They go, oh, I have a save spell or deny or something. You say, okay. And then now they have to have like 1 to 2 save spells every single turn because you're making 1 to 2 darkness every single turn with this darkness deck. Not to mention that things like Zoe will never level because they're not going to keep a 1 HP unit alive. I mean, look at this deck. We just saw the Allen version. We'll still look at this because it's about the same. You play 3 Pokestick, 3 Vile Feast, some number of Withering Wail, and you play Vengeances, and you play Mini-Morph. It's like, and you have Conchologist to make to find removal spells, and that's not even including the Darknesses. So like, there's no way that 1 HP unit's gonna live long enough to be able to level against you. So that matchup is extremely easy. I recommend Darkness. I actually have a Darkness video going out tomorrow, so if you guys are interested in learning how to play Darkness or want to watch how Darkness is played, make sure to check into my YouTube channel tomorrow because I'll be putting out this Darkness deck that hit rank 1. So yeah. All right, deck number 2, Ahri Kennen. Really not much to say about this deck. It is the same deck that's been around. I mean, it's just, you know, Ahri Kennen Go Hard. I didn't see the number of people that represented this at seasonals this last weekend, but it was pretty big from what I understand. Like, every single top player used it. I don't know if every person that made top 32 used it, but I know that just about every single top player used it in their lineup. The most popular lineup was just Ahri Kennen, Lee Sin, and then X, and then X was usually Darkness. So almost every top player was on some form of Ahri Kennen, Lee Sin, Darkness, or Ahri Kennen, Darkness, third deck that beats Lee Sin. It was just like a big triangle that way. So Ahri Kennen is still an extremely dominant deck. Very crazy. I'm sure this deck will get nerfed in the new patch. I would be extremely surprised if this deck went untouched. As to how to nerf Ahri Kennen, I'm not really sure. That could be a topic for another day. But yeah, deck is still extremely strong. Really cheap interactions, really cheap save spells between 1 mana Recall, 2 mana Nopify, 2 mana Twin Disciplines will beat out just about every single removal spell your opponent could have, and usually for cheaper. And that's why this deck is as strong as it is. Deck number 3 is Scouts. So the reason people play Scouts is because it beats Darkness and it beats... Oh, hello? Technical difficulties. It beats Darkness and it beats Ahri Kennen because it's such an aggressive deck with low to the ground and a back row champion or a back row carry in the Misfortune. So the Misfortune ever enters combat, they never have a chance to kill it with things like the Twin Disciplines and Go Hards and combat tricks of that nature. And that makes it very hard. On top of the fact that they play Ranger's Resolve, so a lot of their cheap units, when they swing into you, you can use Ranger's Resolve to counter the combat completely. Or if they try and go hard, something like a Blinding Assault of Valor, you can just say, okay, Ranger's Resolve. Now, not only does your go hard not work, but now I get to kill off your 1 attack units for free. I get to kill your droplet for free. I get to trade something into your like 2-1 for free or 2-2 for free. And it's just a really hard time to deal with them. The downside with Scouts, of course, is if you don't draw the Misfortune on 3, your deck is really bad. If you don't draw Misfortune on 3, your deck's really bad. If you don't draw Misfortune on 3 and you don't have Quinn on 5, you're basically playing like a tier 3 deck. The saving grace is people started playing 3 Vanguard Sergeant because people quickly realized, hey, you know, if we can't have Misfortune on 3, maybe we can have Vanguard Sergeant on 3, play a 4 Demacia in the later game, give our entire units like, you know, +6/+6, hope that that's enough to carry us through a combat step, force your opponent to block down. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we be sad about it. Also, I say +6/+6. I actually think it's +3/+3. I don't quite remember. We'll figure it out later. But I think it's plus. I hope it's +6/+6 because I know the Bandle City card gives +4/+4. So if it doesn't give +6/+6, I'm gonna cry a little bit. But yeah. So Scout's still extremely good. Still beats out all the control decks. Unfortunately, you're going to lose to all the mid-range decks like the Pantheon Taric, the Spiders, what is it? The Elise Trundle Spiders deck is going to do well into this. A lot of elusive decks, like any elusive deck that can race you is going to do well into this. The thing with Ahri Kennen is it's not going to race you, especially the Go Hard version's not racing you. Yeah, so I think Scout's really good spot. Here we have Lurk, number 4. I mean, nothing special. I saw a lot of Lurk lists actually started playing, and I thought this was actually really smart. I see Right of Negation here, that's pretty weird. A lot of Lurk lists actually started playing the, Guess for a Renekton card was a Ruthless Predator to give something vulnerable, and that's how Lurk actually started beating Ahri Kennen, is they would give the opponents Ahri vulnerable. They would give, you know, like the Droplet vulnerable, the Kennen vulnerable. They would give something vulnerable on the other team, and then they would push in with a lot of damage. On top of the fact that they have, you know, this fearsome unit with Xerxai Collar, and they have some big overwhelm units later on. Of course, these probably get countered by something like a Homecoming. But in the early game specifically, you have the Xerxai Hatchling. So you're able to just give Xerxai Hatchling +2 attack, give something vulnerable, pull it with your second unit, and then now you have this, you know, 1-drop that's hitting you for like 5 or 6 on turn 3 or something like that. And it's absolutely crazy. So yeah, this I like that version of the deck. This version seems just very basic, right? It's just Control F Lurk. There you go, your deck is finished. And yeah, Lurk, people are just playing Lurk again because people love Lurk, but also it does have good matchups into the Darkness, the Pantheon decks, because all of your units are extremely top heavy, meaning your attack is really big and your defense is low. But in the mid-range matchups, you don't care that your defense is low because they're not playing things like the Mystic Shot, the Darkness, the Shock Blast, the Vile Feast, right? So you don't care that your units only have 1 and 2 HP. All you care about is making sure that your units' attack are big enough to kill the mid-range units' health. And so that's why Lurk, people always ask me like, oh, how is Lurk ever favored into these? They also just play big units and Challenger and Barriers and stuff like that. And it's like, well, your 1-drop is contesting their 5-drop, because while your 1-drop is a 1-mana 6/1, yes, it only has 1 HP. That doesn't really matter when the only forms of like removal in these mid-range decks are single combat and concerted strike. And if you're single combating a 10/1 into a 10/10, you know, it's the same thing. They're still going to trade. So as long as your unit has enough attack power, then it'll be enough to get you there against all the mid-range decks. Number 5 is Taric Pantheon. My personal favorite of the Pantheon variants is Taric Pantheon. For those of you who don't know, in the bottom right, that's 3 rallies and then 2 concerted strikes. So 3 golden ages, 2 concerted strikes there. Yeah, Taric Pantheon is really good. I like this version so much more than Shyvana. I said it last week, I explained why, but I'll say it again this week in case you missed last week's Meta Monday. People were arguing, and I saw it argued on some most recent tournaments. Tournament casting of, well, why would you play Taric over Shyvana? I would rather be hitting my opponent with, like, you know, a Tintin Dragon than have this, you know, potential to cheese with, like, you know, 6 rallies in a turn or something like that. And here's the reason. You want threat density. What threat density is you just want as many threats as possible, so that way whenever your opponent finally deals with one, you just say, okay, cool, I have another one. The example they gave when they were casting was, well, if they have Concussive Palm, they're going to Concussive Palm my Tintin Dragon in the same way they're going to Concussive Palm my Taric. And while that's true, the difference is if they don't Concussive Palm your Taric, that's going to be way worse than if they don't Concussive Palm your Shyvana, or vice versa. Your Tintin Shyvana is going to get chump blocked, right? Your Taric is also going to get chump blocked. The difference is Taric is still bringing value because he's casting another spell on the supported ally. So let's say we cast, like, you attack you with a Tintin Shyvana, you chump block with the 1/1, that's the end of combat as long as the Shyvana doesn't have Overwhelm. With the Taric, if you don't have a spell to stop him and they cast like Pale Cascade on the Taric or Guiding Touch on the Taric and they attack, sure, you can chump block with the Taric. You can chump block the Taric with the 1/1, but he's still getting value by drawing you an extra card for free on Guiding Touch. And he gave Tough to your other attacking unit, which makes it really hard to chump block that as well. So he brings so much more to the table if your opponent doesn't have the answers than something like a Shyvana, right? And then, of course, there's the threat density of if you have Vengeance and your whole deck is based around like making this really big Shyvana, you say, okay, I Vengeance your Shyvana, now what? You just have a bunch of regular sized dragons. Like, I don't care about that. And Taric Pantheon, you say, okay, I'm going to vengeance your Taric. Okay, well, now I also have to vengeance your Pantheon. Well, I also have to vengeance your Wounded White Flame. Okay, well, I also have to vengeance this Saga Seeker. So there's just so many individual threats in this deck that's why I like the Taric more, is because it's just one of those that says, hey, if you don't deal with this Taric, I'm going to attack you, 3 or 4 times in this game. And sometimes you can even cast Taric Spell to give both units really big. And I've had multiple times where my opponent's gotten the Taric to be big enough to be a threat, where they've cast something like Zenith Blade on the Taric, and then next turn open attacked with Taric Spell. And I'm like, well, fuck, I don't know what to do now. I can block the Taric, sure, but then, I get ran over by the other unit. Or if I block the other unit, I still have this, 6-8 attack Taric that's hitting me. And it just becomes a bitch to deal with. It becomes really, really difficult to deal with, and it's not fun. So that's why I enjoy the Taric version over Pantheon. A lot of people enjoy the Taric version over Shyvana, than they like the Shyvana version, and I think it's because the Taric version is just strictly better, in my opinion. Ahri Kennen, Shurima, we're not really going to go over this deck. We already did with the Go Hard version. Just basically the exact same deck it's been, and they're the exact same deck. Not the exact same deck. They play a little bit differently, but still cheap interaction with your opponent's removal is, all it takes. Number 7 is Yaya deck. So, for those of you who don't know what Yaya is, Yaya stands for Yordles in Arms. And basically, this is a deck that wants to print out a bunch of units by things like Vandal City Mayor, Telescope, Flame, Boom Baboon, stuff like that. Scrap Heap even, Poro Cannon. And your goal is to just flood the board with units, cast a Yordle in Arms, ask your opponent if they have Deny. If they say Go Fish, then you win the game. You eventually just play this Yordle in Arms card. Your opponent doesn't have Deny. You attack them for 50 damage because all of your units are going to be humongous. They are going to get +4/+4. So yes, this is going to be, a 6/5. This is going to be a 6/6. This is going to be a 7/7 or an 8/8. Sorry, even bigger. So these things get really big really quickly. Thanks to Yordles in Arms. On top of, this is actually a good deck that can still abuse Yordle Captain. You can play Yordle Captain on turn 4, and first of all, having 4 HP is really hard to deal with, especially against things like Ahri Kennen. They can't actually remove this unit well, so all you can do is do something like a Will of Ionia, or something that can recall it to the opponent's hand. And even after that, if you go play Yordle Captain on turn 4, and your opponent tries to Will of Ionia, or Homecoming the Yordle and bounce it back to your hand, in response, you can still do things like Poro Cannon out of Flame Chompers, like a Scrap Heap out of Flame Chompers. You can burst speed of Flame Chompers and still just make a 1/3 Flame Chompers for free on that turn with Yordle Captain. So there's still a lot of things you can do in response to them bouncing your Yordle Captain, on top of the fact that they have no permanent removal for it. And being at 4 HP, it's going to be really hard to remove this unit permanently. This deck is really, really good against control decks because out of nowhere, you just Yordle in Arms, non-Ruination control decks, of course, because you play a bunch of small units. And so now their options are like, okay, do I try and board wipe all of these small units when it's not really worth it, or do I save your Yordle in Arms? If they don't get rid of your small units, they're just going to take, 5, 6, 8 damage over and over and over again until they die. And then if they do deal with it, well, then you say, okay, very cool, dude. I'm going to refill my board because that's what this deck does really well. And I'm just going to cast Yordle in Arms. And now, because you already used your board wipe, my units are just gigantuous and they're all going to kill you. So I think Yordle in Arms is one of the best decks in the meta right now that's being unplayed. I think this deck is absolutely nuts, and I think this is a sleeper pick for sure. I think this deck is insane, basically. So I would recommend playing this deck. It's a lot of fun at the very least. And then finally, coming in at the 8th seed is Spiders, or Spider Aggro, I guess is what I have to call it now. Yeah, Spider Aggro, really good. It's really, really good against things like Ahri Kennen, if you played towards the Fearsome out. It's good against anything. It's good against the Pantheons and the mid-range decks where you don't really care what they're doing. If they say, okay, I'm going to pass until turn 3 to play my White Flame, you're like, sure, pass until turn 3, you're going to start the game at, 10 HP. And that's a very good trade-off to make because those decks don't run much healing. Some of them run, up to 3 Guiding Touch. Some of them run 0 Guiding Touch. So if you have no healing and you start the game at 10, guess what? That's just a Decimate, 2 Decimates, and any card away from lethal at that point. So Very, very impressive run from Spiders. I brought this to Seasonals. Unfortunately, I drew a little bit ungood, and I think my opponents drew a little bit well, so my Spiders didn't end up getting there for 2 of my rounds, but deck is still really, really solid. I really like Spiders. The problem is it's not the most consistent deck because sometimes you just have the worst draws possible, but in the exact same sentence, you can say this deck has some of the nuttiest draws that you could ever ask for. Like, I've had people do things to me of like, I've done this of like turn 1 rear guard, attack you. Turn 2, I've played Arachnoid Horror. Turn 3, I've gone Precious Pet into double Onlooker. And that alone is literally lethal. Like, that is literally killing your opponent on turn 3 if they don't have a Fearsome Blocker. Or, like, any removal or anything like that. If they don't have removal spell for your units or a Fearsome Blocker, that's lethal on turn 3. So, you just have some of these, like, super nut combos that you could do with Spiders. But the trade-off with that is some games you just feel like there's absolutely nothing you could do. Or you're like, man, I really need a Nocturne Fervor, I really need a Decimate, and you don't draw it, and you get really, really sad. So, yeah, I think Spiders could be really good. I think all Spiders needs is like 1 more burn spell. If Spiders got 1 more burn spell, or even in the in the form of a unit, like if they got another Doom Beast or Imperial Demolitionist style card, then Spiders would be like easily tier 1. But they don't have that, and until they do, they're gonna stay right where they are as a very solid tier 2 deck or a meta counter at times. But that's going to be it for this week's Meta Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really hope you guys get to your rank goal, whatever it is, before the season resets next week. I probably won't do a Meta Monday for next week, and the reason is not because I don't think it'll be worth it because, oh, there's nothing to go for, but for 2 reasons. One, by the time I put out my Meta Monday on Monday, there's only 2 days until the new season starts, so all of my information will only be useful for 2 days anyways. And 2, the meta stats are going to be completely fucked. And this happens every season, so I've seen it happen a lot. All of the meta stats are going to be super fucked because of the fact that a lot of people aren't trying anymore, and a lot of people aren't playing the tier 1 decks because a lot of Masters players and a lot of the players that I get my data from, you see here I use Masters every week, they just play... nobody wants to try for the final week because it doesn't really mean anything to them. So they're going to start pulling out things like the Katarina Swain, the Katarina Vladimir, the, Braum Ezreal, like just random garbage, and start playing it a lot. And it's really going to mess up a lot of the stats, and it's going to make some decks seem really good and overplayed, and some decks be like, oh, it fell off, but realistically, all it's going to do is just fuck with the stats. So because of that, I'm not going to do a Meta Monday next week either, but what I will do instead is I will post a top 5 decks to look out for in the next season. So if you want the 5 decks that 5 new decks to make with whatever cards end up getting revealed, like the Gnar, the Udyr, the stuff like that, then make sure you guys tune into my YouTube again, click the subscribe button so you get notification when I post that video, and yeah, all that fun stuff. So that's gonna be it for this Meta Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Join my Discord, link will be down in the description below. Go follow me on Twitch, I stream on there almost every single day. That's it. I'll see you guys in the next video.